a year. And he, at this point, he's close to 10 championship fights, which is insane. Activity plenty, evidence there in it. But with regards to his loss to Sean Strickland, which was rather a very, very what's the word that people use? Uh, a shocker. I forgot what word I was going to use. Yes, but it wasn't something that was expected. Um, Usman was on DC, I mentioned earlier, and he advised Izzy to kind of rest and enjoy life before he comes back in. But I have an opinion here. It seems like most people, like Oluyinka here, they also share the same sentiment for Adesanya to take a break. Okay, Toby, while I have you here before your internet starts scrambling, what do you think? Okay. It appears that Toby cannot hear me. Or can you, Toby? Nope. So I'm just going to hide Toby from here and then I'll continue solo until his connection gets better. So here are my thoughts about this situation. So since after the fight, Izzy has not posted anything on his YouTube, Freestyle Bender that is, I checked before I hopped on here. On his Instagram, he only posted a selfie video of him talking about the loss, saying he hates losing or whatever. And that is really not like Izzy. Is he Izzy always is active after his fights. Even after he lost to Pereira the first time, he was active. He took it in the chin and he was kind of humble with it. But in this case, we've heard silence, radio silence from Izzy's camp. And with the fact that most people are saying easy wait, easy rate, easy rest, I kind of feel like um he probably is leaning towards waiting. Hence why we haven't heard anything from him or his camp. Maybe he's trying to get a confirmation from the UFC to be like, yo, you guys guarantee me getting back in there, even even if the champion fights again before I do. Maybe that's the case. But here is my opinion about all this. I absolutely think Easy should get back in there. Um, well, mostly because of evidence. And the evidence is we've seen him do this before. We've seen him lose to Pereira in the way that he did and come back and win and beat Pereira with the way that he did, which is rather more impressive. And we had one of the best memes coming out of MMA. Yes, Easy being the Cristiano Ronaldo of UFC. And there's this thing with the fact that Dana White was not shy to say Easy gets the rematch if he wants it, or Easy gets the rematch. It's a no-brainer because of the star power and who he is to the UFC. So recently, the UFC and Endeavor, which is the parent company of the UFC, they merged with WWE and formed by a company called TKO now under an umbrella company called TKO. And when that announcement was made, there was a video package that was played. And what I saw was WWE showing all their big stars, mostly right now who their GOAT is right now, which is Roman Reigns, who has all the titles. He has beaten everybody. They were putting Roman Reigns next to Israel Adesanya, right? And this just happened last week, so it was just after the fight. So basically, these video edits have been in existence for a while. So that means that the UFC sees Adesanya as their face right now. Hence why it would be a good look for them for Adesanya to be a champion again. So that's why probably why Dana White was not shy to say, "Oh, we're gonna give you a rematch." Just because if you look at Aljo lost his title to Sugar Sean, but he wasn't guaranteed a rematch. He's out here campaigning for a rematch. Uh, if you say, okay, maybe Aljo got finished, that's not a good look for a champion. He needs to go get a win to get back. let's talk about Tyron Woodley. Tyron Woodley had a unanimous decision victory, one-sided against Kamaru Usman when Usman was the new champion, but we never got a rematch of Woodley because Dana White doesn't like them and he doesn't think that that's good for business. But here's my thing: this fight of MMA, yeah, this sports of MMA, it we easily forget. We easily forget. Like our memory is just like the next fight, and then we are on to the future, right? Because like with Strickland now being a champion, if Strickland comes out and wants to defend the title, we can see a lot of people coming out and doing campaigns to fight Strickland. We've seen Cannonier speak about it because Strickland's last loss was to Cannonier. We've seen Dricus talk about it. Dricus saying he doesn't care who has a title, he just wants the title. Now, this makes me think, if Izzy is guaranteed a fight, a title fight, immediately after Strickland fights anybody, do you think he should accept and maybe sit out for like 6 months or 7 months? Um, to be honest, I think Izzy should get back in there. But let's see back into the comment section. Oluyinka has something to say. He says their styles don't match at all. Adesanya needs a lot of adjustment. Kamaru spoke about his ego not accepting someone else being the champion, but for this loss, a lot of lessons have to be learned. Yes and no. Um, I don't think that it's going to be tricky for Izzy to make adjustments to beat Strickland. I don't think it's going to be something that they would sit down and drill a lot. I believe if uh if Izzy would fight, if let's assume that he recovers from all the mental depression or whatever he's going on with him right now as a fighter. Let's assume he gets over that. I believe if he fights him next month, a week is enough for to strategize, because he's 35 or 36 years old. He's not going to learn any new thing. It's just basically strategy, mixing up the techniques that you've learned, creating traps, setting traps, and executing. So I don't think it's going to be an issue. Stylistically, I don't think Sean Strickland is that much of a challenge. Um, well, it was an off night for Izzy. A lot of people would say, but yeah, I like to give Sean Strickland credit, but I do believe that with evidence, the fact that Izzy has been fighting for a while, and with the long list of tape that we have of him to study his fight, and Sean Strickland fighting over 20 fights in the UFC, 20 fights, am I right? Yeah, we've got tape and history of them. Putting both history and tape together, you can see that Izzy can beat him. I don't think it's going to be something that should be taken too serious. Well, it should be taken serious, but I don't think it's something that we should overthink. And I honestly am not sitting on that fence of saying easy, take 6 months. So I feel like he should believe his ego, the voice in his head. I feel like he should take that rematch. That is where I am at. It seems like Toby has given up on coming back on here. So yeah, that's my opinion about it. Feel free to drop your opinion in the comment section. Before I go to the next topic, I would like to remind you guys that we are in audio form, podcast in audio form, wherever you get your podcast from. Please feel free to listen. Maybe you're going to work, on your commute, working out. You could put me in your ear. that sounds that sounds silly, but you understand what I mean. And hey, yes, we are on Patreon as well. So if you would want to be here, you want to submit questions maybe, or you want to be part of the gang up here. Today it's just me. Obviously, you can be part of us if you want. Yeah, feel free to join our Patreon, link in the bio. You would want to be next to me here. We could you could share your opinion. Please feel free. Patreon link in the bio. All right, I'm gonna get back into it. Yeah. All right. So what we've got next, speaking from about one Usman, we'll move to another Usman. So Muhammad Usman, the brother of Kamaru Usman, is going to be fighting next week under the fight card, I believe, of ish. It's UFC Fight Night in Vegas under the fight card of Fiziev versus Gamrot. I kind of forgot that main event. Let me just share my screen so you guys can see. Yep, so Usman versus Jake Collier. All right, so Jake Collier is not having any His record is not very nice, and you can see that he is slightly an underdog. Usman 9-2, obviously. A lot of people favor Usman to win this one, but yes, as we know how the fight game is, to be honest, every time Usman fights, I'm always at the edge of my seat. I'm talking about Muhammad Usman, mostly because he probably wouldn't like this. I feel like Muhammad Usman is a very small heavyweight. He's very small. His size is small for a heavyweight. Obviously, he looks very ripped. He's got wrestling. He's got cardio. He's got grit. The one time I saw him lose in PFL, he kind of like showed heart in that fight. He didn't go out. He stayed into it, and he fought till the end. But right now, Muhammad Usman is riding a 4-fight win streak. 2 wins out of the contender. Sorry, what's that show name? What's that show? Ultimate Fighter, and 2 wins in the UFC. So this time it's going to be in the UFC Apex. I don't know if Kamaru Usman is going to be at his brother's side, because I can see that Kamaru Usman right now is in Italy having the fun of his life. Uh, yeah, we have Jesse Dunaway here. What's up, Jesse? Welcome back, my brother. He said he is a small heavyweight, but I'm sure he doesn't want to cut to 205. Yeah, I think Usman might be very slow, or might be a tad bit slow for the light heavyweight guys. Um, but if he keeps on getting favorable matchups, I think he would be all right. And I see him beating Collier. Obviously, Toby did a bit of a research on this fight. I'm not sure if Toby is here to tell us what he found. Toby, are you here? Okay, all right. Toby isn't here. So yes, Muhammad Usman, Collier. That's only African fights in the Fiziev card next week. Um, Obviously, please stick with us. We would discuss last night's Mexican independence fight card. A lot of talking points coming out of that. I'll share my opinion today, just me. I hope it's not rubbish. um, yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and go to the next fight. It's Cedric Doumbe versus Zebo. All right, so a lot of people would not be aware about how significant or how important this fight is for Cedric Doumbe, or how significant Cedric Doumbe is to African MMA. All right, so Cedric Doumbe, I've been saying it for a long time. Everybody knows that Cedric Doumbe is one of the most talented kickboxers in the world. He is currently in the welterweight and currently signed under the banners of the PFL. All right, so Cedric Doumbe is going to be fighting Zebo. So now here is what is interesting about this. Both fighters are 4-0, undefeated. So basically someone's O's gotta go. This fight is going to be on the 30th of September. This might be a very, very premature review, because something might happen. But yeah. Uh yeah, Jesse Dunaway thinks that Cedric Doumbe should win. Yes, 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 yes. All right, so here is another fun fact. Cedric Doumbe doesn't speak English. Well, he speaks English, but because he is in the French bubble, we don't really know too much about him, about the drama going on. So Cedric Doumbe has beef with owner of Ares, who happens to be Francis Ngannou's former uh, coach. I forgot this guy's name now. Fernando Lopez, I believe so. Yeah, so he's got serious beef. There's a lot of like back and forth between him and them. I believe that the name of their gym is MMA MMA Masters, MMA Factory in Paris. Yeah. So now Zebo is a product of Ares, which is owned by Fernando Lopez, and Zebo is trained by Fernando Lopez. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. I hope that's his name. So with this beef going on, obviously, if you remember, Fernando Lopez is the same coach of French heavyweight Sirogan. Yeah. So this is going to be huge for Paris in the space of MMA, local MMA in Paris. There are two gyms that absolutely have some serious beef, and both fighters are going to be making their PFL debut. So it's going to be PFL 3 Europe. Um, some championship fights will happen in there, but Cedric Doumbe and Zebo are not going to be part of the championship fight. This is uh this is gonna be a cracker. Cedric Doumbe has bet on himself going to PFL. He's obviously being paid the big bucks, so he really, really wants to make a name for himself. I believe if Cedric Doumbe goes like 5-0 in PFL, he probably will get a very big contract with the UFC. That is, if PFL at that point have not started being big rivals for the UFC. All right, so this is a fight you guys should keep an eye on. I believe next week when we've got the panel with us, we will discuss more about this fight. Yeah, so let's go. All right, so it's at this point of the show that we are going to hop onto the questions in the Patreon. Shout out again to Christopher Graham. Christopher Graham actually takes his time, compiles a list of questions, and to be honest, they're very interesting. They make my day. They don't make me do too much when it comes to topics, because when I look at what is in Patreon, I'll be like, okay, I guess that's it. And the rest of the questions today would be from our Patreon. All right, so first one, it says huge controversy with the split draw. What next? Grasso, Shevchenko 3, the trilogy, or Blanchfield or Fiorot? Fiorot, I believe that's the French girl that beat Togros in that Paris card. Yeah, so I watched this fight in the morning, and to be honest, I think the Shevchenko Grasso, first of all, amazing crowd. When these happens, like when the UFC try to do like shows that are targeted for like a particular nationality, there is extra passion regarding the crowd and how crazy it sounds. This happened in the T-Mobile Arena, but I don't know how the UFC, even though it's the Mexican independence, I don't know how they got to sell tickets just to the Mexican fans, because it kind of felt like they were fighting in Mexico. I don't know how that happened. Maybe you have to show your Mexican nationality before they sell a ticket to you, or the Mexicans just swarmed the ticket website when the ticket came out. I really have no idea how they made it feel like it's actually in Mexico. We'll discuss more on Mexico and the UFC, but it was an amazing atmosphere. The crowd obviously were behind Grasso. Shevchenko came in looking to get her title back. So this was an incredible fight. This had more fun than we thought. It had more fun that we anticipated it to be. But I'm going to call your attention to the fight card. All right, so I have the fight card in the screen for our audio listeners. Uh, Here is where it gets interesting. So, Judge Junichiro Kamijo scored this contest 48-47 for Grasso. That's a champion. Sal D'Amato scored the fight 48-47 for Shevchenko. And Mike Bell scored the fight 47-47 for a split draw, basically. This is something that cannot be defended. If the UFC and the judges are not two separate entities, I would have been like, there was an audible that was called, because there's no way that that fifth round was a 10-8. I feel like Mike Bell probably thought, no, man, I cannot make an excuse for this guy. I cannot make an excuse. It's just incredibly ridiculous. So here's what you guys should pay attention to. First round, according to Mike Bell, first round, he gave Valentina the round 10-9. I believe all of us in our scorecard, we did the same. Second round, Grasso took that round, mostly because of the knockdown. We would give that away. The third round, it was clearly one-sided. Shevchenko. I believe all the judges got this right. Now, here is where the problem came in the fourth round. The fourth round was one of the closest fourth round you would ever see. And to be honest, from my own point of view, I actually did give the fourth round to Shevchenko. Um, a lot of people, I think this is where emotion come in hand. If that fourth round, you will judge it according to who you like the most. Basically, oh, I want Shevchenko to win, and then I assume that she got that fourth round, but it was very close. It was this close, and the fifth round, yes, Shevchenko fought for the first 3 minutes, dominating for the first 3 minutes, and then she tried to do like a was it like she tried to like do a trip takedown and then ended up to be in the bottom of it, I believe, and then there was like some heavy ground and pound. Yes, that happened. But in no sense, in my whole experience being an MMA fan, I'm not gonna say being a fighter, there's no way you would look at that fifth round and be like, that is a 10-8. You could even maybe look at the second round and be like, oh, Grasso, 10-8. It wouldn't make sense too, but that could be something that you could actually do. But the the fifth round wasn't that close, wasn't that far apart. It wasn't one sided dominated. So this comes down to a lot of conversations that have been had in the past that judges should come out and defend their scorecards. And I would love to hear what Mike Bell would say. Obviously, we wouldn't get to hear that. But JC Dunaway said he also had the fight 3 to Valentina Shevchenko. Please, if you're watching, you feel free to drop your comments about what you thought the card, how you scored the fight, basically. Um, yeah, so now let's talk about what is going to happen going forward. I think this isn't settled. We need a trilogy. And I don't think this would be one of those situations where Brandon Moreno situations where they would get to fight the fourth fight because they would need a rubber match. You know, a rubber match in pro wrestling is like when there is a draw, like you win when the score is equal, we need a fight to make it uneven. So now Grasso is leading by 1.5. Valentino has 5. So if Valentino wins the trilogy, then that means that they both are equal. So they would need a fourth fight. I believe at this point they'll call it a quadology. I have no idea what they would call it. The fourth fight to determine who actually wins the title. So that means sometimes the division will be a bit stale. I don't know if that's gonna happen. But here is a question. Um, do we get Shevchenko to move to 135 because obviously Amanda has left? Or does she stay for the trilogy? I personally think that she should do the trilogy because yesterday we were spoiled by that main event. Again, that fight was more fun that it had the right to, and I would absolutely want to see a third fight. And I believe most MMA fans would want that as well. All right, so another fighter that caught my attention, I believe he did yours as well. If you missed the prelims, Kopylov. Kopylov got finish in the second round mostly by attacking the body, the torso of Frem. Oh crap! Oh gosh, I think that's it. Yeah. Fights incredible, but that's not what we're going to be talking about. What we're going to be talking about is that Kopylov has done this 4 times in a row now. Spectacular finishes. He hits very, very hard. That front kick is very, very devastating. I went back and I saw his fight against Dichiro, and bro, I'm gonna tell you, man, that guy, he hits with all bad intentions. And now the fact that he is not ranked and the fact that he has been fighting fighters that are not in the rankings, I believe at this point he needs to fight someone in the one of the contenders that are ranked. Uh, here in our Patreon, there are questions here. Who would you want him to fight? Would you want him against Muniz or Curtis or Hermansson? Why don't we feed this guy? Is it Shabazanian? That guy that was trained by Ronda Rousey, the guy that we thought was going to be the youngest champion ever. Is Shabazana? I forgot how to pronounce his name. Yeah, that kid. If he is still in the UFC, I have no idea if they've let him go at this point. I think let's put him there with Kopylov. Let's see what's going to happen. Um, I believe that's my pick. If he is still fighting in the UFC, that's gonna be a banger of a fight. With regards to Kopylov, uh, being being in moving forward, I believe he should be higher in a card, not below in the prelims. Obviously, depending on how the card should be. He probably should even fight in Abu Dhabi. I understand he's a Russian fighter, even though he's not from the Dagestani area, but a lot of Russians like to fight in Abu Dhabi. That's another insane crowd. Yes, thank you, ex Marvel Knight Shabazin. Oh God, how do you pronounce it? Shahabazin. Oh God, I'm really sorry. This is one of those names that you would wait until it's been pronounced before you pronounce it. I think it's Edmund Shabazin. Yeah, yeah. He trains, I believe, under Ronda Rousey, or Ronda Rousey like slapped her name around his name, like to give him that push. But obviously, he didn't end up being what we thought would happen, what he would be. Um, I would like to see Kopylov fight him if he's still in the UFC. I'm not sure at this point because UFC they never announced if they let a fighter go. We just stop. We just see him out of the alumni. I mean, out of the fight list. All right, moving forward. The next one, shout out to Christopher Graham. He says, has the UFC missed the opportunity to have a pay per view in Mexico? In June, they had two Mexican champions, one interim champion, and one title challenger. Why is the UFC so slow to pull the trigger? So, I believe the UFC mentioned that they had a PI in Mexico, right? And if memory serves me right, if memory serves me right, sorry, I was reading the comments. If memory serves me right, there was an issue with the whole building of a PI over there. Did they really go ahead with to complete the PI? I can't remember. Some things happened. I think logistic or something happened. It made the UFC lose money. I'm not sure if I'm confusing that or was it the Zufa boxing situation. But yes, there were a lot of issues that were coming out from there. But why are the UFC slow with moving to these markets? When I say these markets, I'm talking about like the African market, for example, right? It's been discussed for 4 years or 3 years. There was a point that we had three African champions, just like the way Mexico was, this position Mexico was a couple of months ago. And right now we have zero African champions, just a few contenders, and we have never been well at this point. We are kind of close with Africa, but let's talk about Mexico. Yes, so Mexico last a couple of months ago they had Brandon Moreno as a champion. They had Grasso as a champion. Uh, who else was the who else was the third person? I can't remember at this point. But yeah, at least we've still got Grasso. And if Pantoja and Moreno would happen again, if a rematch would happen, I think it's one of those things that we could put in Mexico if you guys would agree with me. Yeah, so I believe Moreno fought Davison. Did he fight him in Brazil? I think he did, and he beat him in Brazil. Yeah, I think that was the rubber match. Jesse says because they pre-book events, sometimes it's not in their schedule. This event was thrown together. It was in Brazil. Um, yes, the UFC have always been talking about Yo, the time that they were meant to do this was with Brandon Moreno. Brandon Moreno was a huge star, even in Mexico, the way it was. When he won the title, they were painting murals for him in Mexico. So I'm not I'm not a Mexican, so I would not try to make a case because if I was Mexican, I probably would have been on this case and I would understand what the issues might be. I don't want to be like, oh, they don't have an arena to put it, but yo, the NBA they go there, they do Mexico games, so they definitely have arenas there. So I really don't understand, so I cannot claim to understand, but it's really a missed opportunity. Um, next. Should we see Dracos face Sean Strickland next and the winner face Izzy at UFC Africa 1? I'm not sure if they would call it UFC Africa 1. Maybe if it's a fight night. But if a title will be defended, middleweight title, Izzy fighting on that card, the fight that magnitude of that big magnitude, it'll probably be, it would definitely be a pay per view. Um, yeah, so everything was drawn for us for UFC Africa to happen. I think the closest we were to UFC Africa happening was when Dricus and Easy, when we had that picture of Dricus in the cage and Easy in the cage, Easy champion, Dricus challenger. There was the little racial undertone, the little uncomfortable conversations going on. Those really, really made the storyline become huge. I believe if we had this year, hypothetically speaking, if we had Dracos versus Adesanya after that thing that happened in the cage, if we had that in Africa, if we had that pay per view in Africa, it would be the biggest pay per view for the UFC this year. Because we know who the cash cow is. It's Conor McGregor, and he is not fighting this year because he's not in the USADA testing pool, right? Adesanya is the new cash cow. If Adesanya fought Dracos after that whole debacle and after the world started splitting and we're seeing things in black and white, if that fight had happened, that would have been the biggest pay per view for UFC this year, and it will crack probably the top 5 pay per view of all times for the UFC. So it's really, really good business. So now Strickland has spoiled the party for us. Or did he? Because Dricus versus Sean Strickland, I believe Dricus would beat Sean Strickland, as most of you would think. And it might be much more interesting for Adesanya to chase the title to Africa, right? He probably would think this is the best storyline for him. Sorry. Because if you guys remember Rumble in the Jungle, right? Um Muhammad Ali was the big underdog. It was like 4 months. I think it was 4 months, yeah. It was like uh well, I'm just giving hypothetical here. Marvel Knights, he says Sean will beat Strickers. But wait, you guys hear me out. What made Rumble in the Jungle what it was the fact that the brash talker, the trash talker, Muhammad Ali, was the guy that is fighting adversity. He's the guy that everybody said he wouldn't do it. If you just take your time and watch a documentary about Rumble in the Jungle in Zaire in Congo, it was the fact that he came in, did his rope a dope, won that fight, and the whole Ali Boumaye situation, the whole African situation, one of I think what the highest pay per view of all time, or one of the biggest pay per view of all time. That is what Easy would probably like. Let's say Dricus now beats Strickland, and now Easy versus Dricus should happen in Africa, South Africa. Easy will proudly be like, yes, I'm going to beat him in his home soil, right? And Izzy would think he would convince himself that he would absolutely do it. And at this point, if the odds come out, the odds will probably favor Dricus because of Izzy's last performance. So it would be one of those situations where Izzy already thinks his life is a movie. He already has a documentary. He probably will think, yo, this is the part 2 of my documentary. And if he actually pulls it out, he's going to be even a bigger star. And I believe you guys would want to see all that happen. But obviously, this is all hypothetical. This is if somebody beats somebody and somebody beats somebody. Uh, but again, I've given my opinion earlier about Izzy fighting Strickland. I don't want Strickland to fight Dricus. I don't want Strickland to fight Dricus first. I want Izzy to do a rematch with Strickland because I know it might be a quick turnaround. A lot of people have been advising Izzy to not fight again, but I believe he should. And I think he just needs to make some adjustments. And his camp is very, very capable of doing those adjustments. And I think he can beat Strickland. I understand that Strickland will be much more confident, which might be his demise if he fights Izzy again. But yes, that is my opinion. And I'm very curious to hear what your opinion is if Izzy should get back in there. All right, so I think Izzy should go get the title from Strickland and then go defend it against Strickers. All right, so yes, with UFC returning to China in December, how about this fantasy card to show the case for the Chinese talent? Yes, so I actually did sorry, I'm gonna quickly share a slide with you guys. I put a graphic together because Christopher Graham gave us a fantasy card for UFC China that will probably happen in December. And I'm going to share the graphic with you guys in 2 seconds. Sorry, it's just loading up. And you guys will tell me what you think. Yes, Marvel Knights, Nigeria versus South Africa. Let's get it. Some Amapiano versus what? Afrobeat? If you know, you know. All right, so I quickly slapped it on Canva and put it in graphics so we can discuss this better. So it's a fantasy card for UFC China, and you guys tell me what your opinion is. I haven't really had a time to look at the fighters individually to see their recent fights because obviously my head is not a UFC encyclopedia. But here we go. So in the main card, the main event obviously will be the ladies, which would be Weili Zhang versus Yang Xiaonan. Fun fact, guys. I spent 6 years in China before moving to the UK, so I kind of understand Chinese a bit. I do speak Chinese. So, Xiaonan in China, maybe because it might mean something else, but in China, Xiao is tiny, small, Nan is lady. So, Xiaonan is small lady. I think so. Anyways, so Weili Jiang versus Yan Xiaonan. Uh, yes, Weili Jiang is currently dominating with an iron fist. All her fights are not even looking close. She looks like she's levels above these ladies. And Yan Xiaonan obviously she's been in a couple fight cards. I probably should have this on so we look at it together. All right, so let's look at what Xiaonan has done. Um, here we go. I'm gonna share my screen again. All right, so Xiaonan record 17-3. Currently on a 2-fight win streak. Mackenzie Dern, which obviously that's a big one, and Jessica Andrade. So those are two huge names in the UFC that she has beaten. She lost to Carla Esparza, but those two names are very big names. I believe she's already positioned to be the next challenger for Weili Jiang, and it only makes sense at this point. I don't think any fight has been announced for UFC China yet, but I believe this should be the main event. Oh look, she was born in Shenyang, Liaoning. That was where I was living when I was in China. I had no idea. I was living in Liaoning province. Yeah. So I guess I have a favorite now. I want Xiaonan to beat Wei Lijiang because she is from the city that I studied. All right, so moving down to the card, the next fight will be Song Yadong versus Piotr Yan. Piotr Yan, obviously one of the most unluckiest fighters in the UFC. Uh, he's ever since he hit the knee on Aljo. It looks like his stock went down a bit with him being unlucky. We saw him against Sugar Sean O'Malley, the current champion of the division, and that was a very close fight. A lot of people thought that he won that fight. All right, so let's look at Song Yadon. All right, Song Yadon, Kung Fu Kid, record is 20-7. His last fight against Ricky Simone, he won round 5. Was that a main event? That must be a mistake. Yeah. His fight against Rob Font got cancelled. That was supposed to be in August. Yeah, we know he's a heavy puncher for a bantamweight, but it will always be exciting to see Piotr Yan there, one of the most pure boxers in the UFC. All right, so the welterweights Li Jianling versus Vicente Luque. I believe that's Lee. That's the Leech, right? The guy that lost to Chimaev. Incredible striker. The Chinese are very blessed with striking. Maybe I don't know if it's the kung fu background. Vicente Luque, one of the most experienced fighters in the welterweight division. He's been in the UFC for over 20 fights. I believe he's one of the guys in the 20 club. That would be a good fight for Lee. Vicente Luque can obviously win that fight. The Chinese fans would love that. Yo, Courageous Empire has something to say. He said Peter Yan is losing that fight for sure. Nah, dog. I don't believe that. Yo, so there was a time that Peter Yan was like untouchable, right? And the thing is, I rate Peter Yan very, very high. I think his striking, the way he can insert damage is very, very, very high. And then his fight IQ is very, very good. We've seen him time after time after time. In the first round, because of his boxing background, in the first round in his fight, he kind of like studies the opponent. He makes all his reads, and then he comes out second, third round, bang, bang, bang. He finds all the holes that he found when he was studying. So I really, really think that Peter Yan is going to beat Song Yadong. But if that actually happens, yes, we will be spoiled. By the way, shout out to Christopher Graham. This is a very, very carefully put together card. I really wish I had someone with me on the pod today so we can bounce this together. We have Jesse Dunaway here. He says, "Is Li Jianling okay to fight though with a spinal injury?" No. This is a fantasy card, Jesse. It's not it's not confirmed. But I'm not really sure. I didn't even know that Leach has had a spinal injury. That's very interesting. Or I should say that's rather unfortunate and sad. I wish him quick recovery. We've got Marvel Knight. He said, "I heard Peter Yan is training in Dagestan, so he might come back and wrestle heavy." I think he already did. He had already been training when he was champion. Yeah, he was training in Dagestan with those wrestlers. So and it was evident when he was like stuffing a lot of takedowns until he met uh the king of the backpack, which is Aljo. Courageous Empire says, with the way MMA judges scoring fight, you can't just give a first round. Well, unfortunately, that's Peter Yan's style. He studies the first round before he comes out and try to put out his opponent. But he's really, really a sure banger. Oluwatobi Aderemi, Yan will be back stronger than ever. Uh, Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know who Oluwatobi is now, you should know. It is the poster boy of bad internet connection. So Toby is supposed to be me with me here on the pod, but he is in the live chat with you guys because his internet connection apparently wouldn't let him be here. So shout out to Toby, ladies and gentlemen. Please advise Toby to get better internet so he doesn't have to leave me here hanging out to dry. Because I'm looking at this fight card now. We are looking at Su Mudeji versus Tagir Olambekov. Ha! This is why I need somebody here because I need someone to take this for me. But Su, flyweight, very talented fighter. Can't really say too much at the top of my head. I'll have to pull his topology, but I don't want you guys to hear me rambling. Another you could take a very good look at the prelims as well to see what Christopher Graham has put together for us. And look at the road to UFC finals. Those are the series that the UFC do sort of like the Dana White Contender Series, but in a foreign land. So I don't know where where Christopher Graham put this together. So here's what we're gonna do. What we're gonna do is next week we're gonna look at this fantasy card again, and we're going to fantasize about it when we are much more prepared. All right, so Courageous Empire said, "How did you score last night main event? I scored a 4-1 Valentina." Oh wow, this is a new one. I didn't hear 4-1. I only saw uh 3-2. 3-2. Most people were saying 3-2. Yeah. There's the scorecard, ladies and gentlemen. I've already spoken about this earlier. Courageous Empire. Um, I also thought Valentina's score won the fight 3-2. I believe Jesse Dunaway also thought the same thing. He thought Valentina took the fight 3-2, which is a reason why we should see a trilogy so we could have uh we could put a stop to this nonsense that Mike Bell started. I honestly don't understand how in the world you scored the fifth round at 10-8. That was incredibly low of him. All right, guys. Spent 50 minutes with you guys here. This had been fun. Thank you for sticking with me. Uh, I know I rambled a lot, but shout out to you guys. Um, yeah. Again, audio. We have this podcast in audio form. Please, you could listen to it if you want, if you missed the stream or whatever. And again, if you'd want to be part of the panel, if you'd want to be up here with me so we could discuss this, please feel free to join our Patreon. You could pledge whatever amount you want. That actually encourages us to come back. It encourages us to come back and consistently do this. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I remain Jabril from the African Fighters, and we are